All right, so the Jets, Titans, Raiders, and Dolphins are going to kick us off down here at the bottom four teams. I think these four teams are the clear bottom of the barrel. I think every other team, has been somewhat competitive. These four teams, even though three out of the four of them have a win, it's still kind of clear to me that these four teams are the worst in the league right now. Mike McDaniels is seeming like he's going to be the next head coach to go. I mean, will is he going to be the next head coach to go? I think so. There are a couple of other ones that are on the hot seat potentially, but I think Mike McDaniels is gone soon. But yeah, these are the worst. These are the four worst teams in football. Titans almost even shouldn't have one win, and then the Dolphins have one against the Jets. And somehow, some way, the Raiders beat the Patriots in Week 1. But weird stuff happens early on this season. Nonetheless, four worst teams in football. Let's move on to the Saints. Very disappointing game. I mean, versus the Bears. I mean, this is a gritty football team. They're gonna put up some fights, but they're not going to win many games. And they have a bright future though. I like Rattler. I like Kellen Moore at head coach. I think that they have a bright future. So, but right now, 2025, yeah, they're a bottom squad. Ravens are down 2 spots. I know they're coming out of the bye, but it just felt like some other teams had to be ahead of them. Didn't feel like they should be ahead of the Cardinals or the Browns, but the Ravens down 2 spots, man. I mean, we'll see. We'll see. They're coming out of the bye. Will Lamar play? This is the opportunity. It's do or die right now. They're 1-5. They got to go win. They're playing No, they're not playing the Texans. They're playing the Bears. So that'd be an interesting matchup. Can the Bears keep rolling? Or could the Ravens get on track coming out of the bye? We'll see, but they're down 2 spots. It's not necessarily their fault. We're down 2 spots because of the bye, but at the same time, they wouldn't be down this low if they weren't 1-5. Cardinals are down 3 spots after a game. Once again, they just can't close out. They have put up really competitive games. I mean, pretty much every single game this year so far, I'm pretty sure. Almost beat the Colts, almost beat the Packers. I mean, the Cardinals have put up good games against some solid football teams. They just haven't been able to finish. And still, since their 2-0 start, they're on a 5-game losing streak. So, down 3 spots. Browns are up 3 spots after a very nice victory over the Dolphins. They pretty much manhandled Dolphins. I mean, 30. What was it? 31-3. Something of that nature. But Browns just dominate. They move up 3 spots. Offense looked like it was clicking a little bit. Run game was going. Cliff Jenkins is nice. And they really were able to stop the Dolphins' only weapon on offense. Waddle's good. But it feels like Devin Onchain is the best player in the Dolphins, and the Browns pretty much eliminated him. But all right, you guys just saw it. All right, the Giants are down 2 spots. I mean, you're up an insane amount in the fourth quarter. You find a way to lose that game. I just don't feel like they're worse than some of these other teams that are below them, but they're on a winning streak. They're looking good, but it's seeming like their defensive coordinator is struggling. He's probably gonna have to go. Brian Dable can't really go now. He's kind of linked to Jackson Dart. Can't really get rid of him, but nonetheless, a really disappointing outing. In the fourth quarter. You played really well the first 3 quarters. Heck, you were pitching a shutout, and you were looking like the Giants. Okay, they're for real. But then you pulled that in the fourth quarter. Not good. Bengals are up 3 spots after a nice win over the Steelers on Thursday Night Football. Very unexpected for me, anyways. I mean, Joe Flacco does a phenomenal job of getting the ball out, and Jamar Chase's separation. He had an insane game. The amount of catches he had was insane. T. Higgins got going in this game. It felt like you had a quarterback back there. Maybe he's older. Maybe he doesn't have too much left in the tank, but he knows what he's looking at. He's experienced. So that's been it's still impressive. He's only been on that team for a couple days prior to this game on Thursday Night Football. And he pretty much has his way with the Steelers defense. The Steelers defense has been on and off, but nonetheless, Bengals move up 3 after a nice win, nice divisional win, keeping themselves in the race too. for the division. They're only one game behind now. Texans moved down 4 spots. I mean, they just can't get anything going on offense. C.J. Stroud, you know, they were going on a little bit of a streak. We're getting some momentum going into bye, and you come out of the bye and you really struggled. You know, and their only touchdown was on defense. It's not looking good for Houston, man. I mean, you know, it's just the offensive line. It feels like the offensive line is bad. The play calling is not very creative. I feel like that's an issue. You know, D'Amico Ryans is, you know, he's gonna be on the hot seat pretty soon, but Texans moved down 4. The Commanders moved down 4 spots. You get absolutely smoked by the Cowboys. I feel like this Commanders team is way too predictable. And then all the man coverage, when you're playing a team like the Cowboys, you're calling all that man coverage. You know, it really, you know, that's what Dan Quinn likes to do. Uh, it's not going to bode well when you have all those guys that the Cowboys have. Lamb coming back, Pickens playing the way he is, Javonte Williams running the way he is, and then they have Turpin and Tolber and Ferguson at tight end, and just the way Dak Prescott's playing it. I mean, that's just not a team you could play a man against unless you have the talent to, and Commanders don't. You know, coming into this season, I was saying that the Commanders overachieved quite a bit last year, and I didn't think that they're going to be as good this year. I didn't think they were going to be this bad, but I really didn't think they were really going to be that impressive. But Commanders moved on 4 spot. Very disappointing. I mean, very disappointing. Defense really struggled with this one. Huh. And you got the Vikings moving down 1. Just I mean, you know, it really felt like in the beginning the Vikings just that it was going to be a complete blowout, like it wasn't even going to be close. Kind of fortunate that the Eagles just, you know, once again had another like cold spurt, but nonetheless, you know, it's just a disappointing game. I mean, they clawed their way back into it, but I mean, Jalen Hurts and this Eagles passing offense pretty much did what they needed to do against you. But not going to dock them too much, but they are moving out 1 spot after the loss. Cowboys are up a whopping 5 spots. This is one of the bigger movers of the week. Big time win over the Commanders. It seems like the defense may be turning a point. If that defense, the Cowboys defense can just be average, or even just barely average, this Cowboys team is going to be able to make the playoffs, and I think they can make a decent run. We know when you have an offense the way they do, but the defense could just find a way to make a couple plays here and there, the Cowboys have a shot to do something. They have a shot to do some damage. But I got to see it consistently. But last 2 weeks, Cowboys defense has looked a little better. We'll see as the season goes on. But nice win over the Commanders. You pretty much dominate the Commanders, and they're gonna move up 5 spots. And you got the Chargers moving down 3 spots. I mean, never even felt like they were in that game. You know, they can't stop the run, can't really run the football. You know, Justin Herbert threw for 400 plus yards, but there's only so much he could do. You know, even though their entire offensive line was beat up, they still pretty much got the crap beat out of them. Yeah, they're going to move down 3 spots. Disappointing. And, you know, Herbert hasn't looked like great himself, but I'm not saying it's Herbert's fault. I'm not saying Herbert's not good anymore. I'm just saying that, you know, it's kind of like when the offensive line is that bad, you know, when you don't have any time at all to let anything develop. You know, you can't get the run game going, and then you got to play catch up. You know, the Colts offense puts a lot of pressure on opposing teams. You know, the Chargers just couldn't keep up, and yeah, Herbert did make a couple of mistakes, but they're down 3. Panthers are up 4 spots. Should I have them ahead of the Chargers here? I don't know, but the Chargers did struggle against Miami. Then they got pretty much beat up by the Colts. You know, they are beat up, sure, but it's a week-to-week power rankings. You know, if I were to predict, the Chargers will be back up in, you know, top 10 or close to top 10 by the end of the season. They get healthy, they figure some things out. You know, it's really the health is a big issue for them. But it's week to week. You know, it's a weekly power rankings for a reason. You know, if they move up, they'll move up. they start winning, they'll move up. But the Panthers up 4 spots. I mean, good game. Good game versus the Jets. I mean, the Jets defense has been a lot better, but the Panthers, they found a way. They did what they had to do. And, it felt like could have gotten a little fortunate in a way. I don't know why the Jets did not run the football more. But on the flip side, the Panthers' run game continues to roll. And then Bryce Young just doing his job. And then, you have Tep making some plays. Leggett having a big-time game. And then getting Chuba Hubbard back into the mix was a big help as well. But it feels like Rico Dowdle is 100%. Is definitely the best guy, or at least the guy with the hot hand right now. But the Panthers, I mean, they're on a decent winning streak. They're 4-3. They're above 500. Could they make a run at this thing and potentially fight for a wild card spot? The NFC is pretty loaded, so it's going to be difficult too. But I do like what I've been seeing from them the last couple of weeks. I do believe Bryce Young did suffer an injury, and then they're playing the Bills this weekend. They are at home. They do play their best football at home. Bills struggle to stop the run, so that could be an interesting matchup. But the Bills are coming out of the bye, 2 straight losses. I think this is maybe we'll see what happens. But the Panthers have been looking good, man. They're a hot football team. They're just playing good football. They're just playing sound football, finding ways to win, and that's all you need to do. If at 4-3 here, they're making their way up the rankings here. The Jaguars moved down 4 spots. They get absolutely smoked by the Rams. It felt like they kind of abandoned the run game too early. They couldn't take advantage of the opportunities that they had. They got pretty much obliterated in London. Usually the Jags play the best football in London, but offensive line is not very good, which doesn't help them when they try to get the run game going even. But Trevor Lawrence has no time. Trevor Lawrence is not really playing too well. I feel like this offensive line and Trevor Lawrence is holding this team back. I do believe that the defense is decent. It's just you ran to Matthew Stafford, and even without Puka Nacua, Matthew Stafford is still one of the best, if not the best, quarterback in the league. But yeah, 4 spots, down 4, very disappointing. You pretty much get smoked. Never even close it was. But I do feel like they abandoned their game plan early. I think Liam Cohen's a young coach trying to figure it out. I think he will. I like Cohen. This is going to be a learning game from him. And the Bears up 5 spots. Another team that is just finding ways to win. Now, I don't know how sustainable it is, but I can tell you that this run game has been impressive, and I did pick the Saints going in that game. I thought the Saints were going to upset them, but here are the Bears, 4-2. Last couple, this was a little more of a convincing win, over the Saints rather than what they had versus the Raiders, and then I think it was the Commanders, just last second field goals, last second crazy stuff happening, but. DeAndre Swift, the run game is good. The run defense feels like it's getting a little bit better every week, which was big because in the beginning of the year, that run defense was horrible. But if Caleb Williams could take the next step, this Bears team can be a little dangerous. They're getting a lot of takeaways on defense. It's kind of what this defense feels like. They're getting a lot of takeaways, giving the offense more opportunities. And if they can continue to do that and then keep playing clean football on offense, and this Bears team can. Maybe I really don't think so. I don't think this is gonna keep up with the Bears, but nonetheless, right now they're playing good. Got to give it to them right now. So they're at 15, and then you have the Steelers. They're staying put at 14. They're really fortunate. I'm not moving them down. The Falcons and the Steelers, 2 teams I did not move down. I just felt like this. Are the Bears better than any of these 2 teams? No. Are they better than any of the 2 of them right now? No. Even though the Steelers did lose to the Bengals, not a good look. But it's really like their defense is struggling, and their offense is making plays. Their offense is getting the job done, but their defense is struggling pretty badly. It feels like the secondary isn't working out. It feels like they have a lot of veteran, hodgepodge going on over there. But, the Steelers, man, I'll keep them put for now because, they still won a lot of games before this one. They still have a decent record. So I'm going to keep them here at 14. I'm not going to punish them. It feels like I've already been harsh on them a little bit, but maybe this game confirms some of my suspicions. But the Steelers are staying put at 14. I'm not going to move them up, not going to move them down. They're probably pretty fortunate. I just don't think that the Bears or the Panthers or the Jaguars, I don't really think you can. Maybe you can make the case for the Panthers or the Bears for being ahead of the Steelers, but I'm keeping where it's at right now. And then the Falcons, you got they were in it. The game was close almost the entire way, but then the 49ers scored late, and that was it. You had a couple big-time games prior. Big-time win versus the Bills. They were just hot. They were a hot football team. They were running the football well. Don't know why they don't run the football, a little more. I think you got to stick with it. You had Penix throw 38 times. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with that. I do like Penix. Do think he's good. But when you're playing a pretty tough Niners defense, even without Fred Warner and Nick Bosa, somehow, they're just the way the Niners are so beat up. But but the Falcons, man, I mean, they gotta find a way to be consistent. I think this is one of the most young, talented teams in the league right now. It feels like they could beat anybody, but they could lose anybody. That's kind of the vibe that the Falcons are giving me. I'm not gonna knock them and move them down because, like I said, I don't think that some of these other teams behind them are necessarily better. So that's just kind of why I didn't feel the need to move them down. But then you got the Eagles moving up 4 spots after a massive win over the Vikings. Early on, it looked like the Eagles were back themselves right away. Came out firing, looking like it's going to be a blowout, but then the Vikings kind of calmed it down, and the Eagles' offense went inconsistent again. See, that's the problem. They're still being inconsistent even during these types of games. And versus the Giants, we saw it the whole game. We actually saw it a couple weeks, in a row where they pretty much struggled. Just so inconsistent from quarter to quarter. That's the issue with them. But there's, the pass rush a little better this game. And the Eagles just aren't running the ball efficiently at all right now. I mean, Barkley had 2.4 yards per carry on 18 attempts for 44 yards. It's just not it. Jalen Hurts did throw the football well this game, though. I mean, it felt like he had his best game of the season. If not, it is one of the best. But I gotta see consistently from quarter to quarter, to game. Maybe the Eagles did turn the corner here, and they're gonna find a way to continue to fight. I mean, yeah, they're gonna continue to fight and play their hardest, but can they, continue to win? Because they're gonna have a couple teams in this division that the Cowboys are no joke. Even though they're 3-3-1, they are no joke. Gotta be careful with the Cowboys. Really good offense. Defense is struggling, but Eagles are gonna want to keep their lead in the division, so they better hope that they figure things out and stay consistent sooner rather than later. Because if not, that division might start to slip. May not. But the Eagles are up 4 spots after that win. I know, it was the Vikings, but the Vikings are a very talented football team. The defense is pretty good. So to see the Eagles finding some success, figuring something out here and there was pretty good to see, and ultimately they won. So, and a little bit of the history does help them, but I do know that they have a good football team. Just because they stay consistent. That's the biggest thing. Packers are up 1 spot. I feel like a lot of people are much higher on the Packers than I am, and let me tell you why I'm not extremely high on the Packers. So they kind of burned me early on in the season. I was saying I thought the Packers were one of the best teams in the league. I thought they were a Super Bowl contender. Still think they do have a Super Bowl roster. I just think they aren't putting games away. They didn't put the game away against the Browns like they should have. Yeah, you ended up losing that game. You couldn't you couldn't beat the Cowboys. We went to overtime, took the tie. It felt like they kept the Cardinals in game. That the Bengals stayed in that game. Yeah, at the end of the day, they won those games. That's what's important. But it's also important to pay attention to the context and look at what's going on beyond just the record. And this is a good roster. Yeah, it didn't help that Josh Jacobs were hurt. Kind of a little fortunate to maybe win this football game. But they just have to put teams away. They're not putting teams away. They're letting them hang around. Like I was trying to get at, I don't know if Jordan Love is the answer. Even though he's completing a high percentage of his passes, I feel like he's inconsistent from play to play. I don't know. I don't know. There's got to be something else wrong because this Packers team should not be, letting some of these teams stick in the games. Not a good look. They could continue to move up here. I do think they are. Like I said, I think they're a very good football team. They're just games are closer than they should be. They're not putting games away. You tie with the Cowboys, and you lost to the Browns, which is a pretty disappointing loss. I feel like the offense, when the offense goes up against a really good defense, say perhaps the Seahawks, the Rams, maybe even the Broncos, some of those defenses, I think that the Packers are really, that offense is going to struggle. But then you have the Broncos sitting at number 10. I mean, wow. That was one of the most entertaining fourth quarters I've ever watched. Bo Nix, Broncos came alive. It's just a matter of fact of, kind of like the Eagles situation a little bit. Can the Broncos play all four quarters? It feels like almost every week, there's going to be a week where it's too late in the fourth quarter and they can't come back. Even though if you could pull it off, we did this game, it's like, okay, yeah, you could probably do that. Yeah, wow. But that's not sustainable. They just had to put games away. They had to come out to stronger starts and such. That's where they're struggling. Bo Nix, I don't really think play calling is very good right now. I'm not too thrilled with play calling. Don't like it. But, yeah, the Broncos are sitting at 10. Number 9, you have the Bills. They moved down 3 spots. Maybe asking, why the heck did they move down 3 spots when they're in the bye? Well, let's move on to some of the teams ahead of them, and then you'll understand why. So I got the Niners, the Patriots, and the Chiefs all moved ahead of the Bills. I was giving them the benefit of the doubt going into the bye, but they lost 2 games. You have some of these other teams winning big games, even though the Chiefs beat the Raiders, dominated the Raiders, and you beat up the Lions really good. The Patriots beat the Bills, and they've just been playing out of their mind. And then the 49ers, somehow, some way, they have half their practice squad. They're the definition of next man up. The coaching is so freaking good over there, putting everyone in the best possible position to succeed. And, the Niners being 5-2, and now they're going to be without Fred Warner, without Nick Bosa. They haven't had Brandon Ayuk. Brock Purdy hasn't been out there. It's been such a crazy freaking season for them. You get all these injuries, like, not looking good, but they're still finding ways to win and play at a very high level. They just beat a pretty damn good red-hot Falcons team. They're not even fully healthy. Crazy. But talked about the Patriots. They've been looking good. Was close that first half. They pulled away in the second half. They're good at stopping the run. I wish they would run the football more and kind of, get that going more. But then you had Drake May. He's playing well. I mean, he's an MVP conversation. Speaking of MVP conversation, you got Patrick Mahomes, who's going to be getting in there pretty soon if he is not already in there. He's playing lights out. The way he's playing is absolutely incredible. It feels like the Chiefs, have the deepest wide receiver room that they've had in a long time. I feel like the defense could maybe be vulnerable, but it was early. Sometimes it takes a couple of weeks for some things to get figured out. So maybe that Chiefs defense has turned the corner and did a very good job versus the Lions, and then, you pitched a shutout against the Raiders. So that's pretty good. It doesn't matter who you play. You pitch a shutout, really damn impressive. And then you got the Bucs at number 5. Bucs actually moved down 4 spots. I was a bit disappointed with them in that game. To be quite honest, they couldn't stop the run. Baker Mayfield didn't have his best of games, and I felt like it's not all him, but I also feel like the Bucs don't just like the receivers are all they did get a couple guys back, but what I really wanted to say was, Lions secondary is pretty much playing with all backups, so it kind of worries me a little bit why you couldn't get things going. But I mean, they just kind of shit the bed. I don't know what else to say. But I do think the Bucs will bounce back. Is that fourth quarter magic going to be expiring here soon? And, is that over? We'll see. But Rams up one. Just an incredible football team, man. I mean, even without Puka Nacua, they still put up 35. They still look like an elite offense. I have no questions about Matthew Stafford whatsoever. The Seahawks the Rams are just looking incredible on offense, and then the defense is great. They really get after opposing quarterbacks like it's nothing because Byron Young is incredible. Jared Verse is freaking crazy, and they have another guy they drafted that's looking really good too. He is a rookie. When you have a really good defensive line like that, and then just a really good defense, and then offensive wise you're that dynamic. I would like Kyron Williams to maybe take care of the football more. I think his performances have been a little questionable lately, but nonetheless, Rams at 4, up one spot, looking as pretty as ever. Damn good football team, as all these teams are in like the top 8, 9, 10, maybe. There's so many good teams this year. It's been hard to pick one number one team. I got the Seahawks at 3. Just that defense playing absolutely incredible. The defensive line is absurd. And the offense, felt like they had a couple mistakes here and there, but they took advantage of the Texans' mistake. Texans couldn't take advantage of the Seahawks' mistakes. Good job, Seahawks, getting the big one at home with the 12th man. I mean, the Seahawks defense is so good. Sam Darnold's playing at an MVP level, and JSN is freaking insane. Don't forget they have Cooper Kupp. They have a decent run game, too, even though it feels like it disappears at times. The Seahawks, man, I mean, they're one of those teams. This is a team that could get into the playoffs and that could play spoiler and beat a couple teams. I don't feel like people are talking about the Seahawks enough. They are a damn good football team. Lions at number 2, they're staying put, and I'll explain why in a minute. But the Lions, pretty damn good performance against the my former number 1 team. But, the games prior where you lost to the Chiefs the way you did, you lost to the Packers the way you did early in the game, or, earlier in the year, those games where you kind of got, like, dominated low-key, and, didn't really get dominated in the Chiefs game too much, but, I mean, Chiefs pretty much had their way. But nonetheless, the other games, like, first the Bears, completely smoking them, and, the Ravens game was big. That was a good, big win. But the Lions here at number 2, I mean, they deserve it. I wouldn't argue with you if you want to switch the Lions and the Colts. Wouldn't argue. I don't think that would be a bad decision. I could even see, if you want to put the Rams there. Maybe I don't know about the Seahawks at the moment, although I would, they could be 2 or 3, But back to the Lions. The way they just ran the football, they overcame all the injuries they had in the secondary. Every team is beat up right now. It's just a matter of fact of who can overcome them better, who has better depth. And, the Lions showed up. Rocky Sin had a nice game. And then, the Lions like to put you in positions where they want to get ahead early and they want to force you to pass the football so that their pass rush could get home and get at the opposing quarterback all day long. And that's what they do. They do it so well. That's a great recipe for success. Postseason, regular season, Super Bowl, wherever the heck you are, that's the recipe for success. Number 1, you have the Indianapolis Colts. I moved them up 2 spots instead of moving the Lions to the first spot. Let me tell you why. The Colts have pretty much dominated everyone they played. The teams that they should have beaten, they dominated. Did they play? You see there's 3 teams on there, the Dolphins, the Raiders, the Titans. They got the Titans again this week. Some of their competition hasn't been the best, but they did beat the Broncos. They just pretty much smoked the Chargers. They did lose to the Rams. It felt like they outplayed the Rams, or just a couple of miscues here and there. But it really feels like the Colts, are the best team of football. Daniel Jones playing at such a high level. This offense, this offense is one of the most efficient, one of the best in the league. You don't know where to, who to cover, who to focus on, because you really can't focus on anyone. And Jonathan Taylor and Daniel Jones, both in the MVP, both putting themselves into the MVP conversation. Absolutely wild. Shane Steichen hasn't playing well. Yeah, they did allow a lot of yards to Herbert. Felt like they were welcoming that. Keep throwing, and we're because we're just gonna score more if you do. That's kind of the luxury that the Colts have right now. But Colts being at number 1, up 2 spots. Here are my Week 8 NFL power rankings. Apologize if I kind of drifted off in this video. I'm like falling asleep here as I'm making it. I do work night shift, and I've been up all morning. I still haven't slept. Been up half the day now. Still haven't slept, but trying to power through, get this video out. But it felt like at some points I was just like zoning away almost and losing my train of thought because I'm that tired. But nonetheless, I'm here. Got the power rankings on. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. This is Jason. If you enjoy, make sure to like, subscribe. Put that post notification bell on so you know what I'm saying. Future power rankings, weekly predictions. I'm probably going to be doing a grading video for a trade deadline. There has been a couple trades already throughout the season, but I'm going to do grades after the deadline's over because I'm sure there will be some. So that's it. Appreciate you guys. See you next time.